This is a short video about verbs of fearing for Latin GCSE. This topic is quite straightforward really, because in the Latin specified vocab list there is only one verb of fearing, timeo, I am afraid or I fear. Now, like in English, timeo can be followed by either a direct object or an infinitive. For example, we've got viri uxores timebant here. The men feared their wives, the men were afraid of their wives. Here, uxores is accusative, it is simply the direct object of timebant. The men were afraid of their wives. Now, it can also be followed by an infinitive. For example, princeps timuit in foro cantare. The emperor was afraid to sing in the forum. Nice and straightforward. So, like in English, either a direct object or an infinitive can be followed by timeo. However, timeo, slightly more confusingly, can be followed by a subordinate clause as well, which uses the subjunctive, and for GCSE only the imperfect subjunctive. We can see from the table the imperfect subjunctive is formed from the first two principal parts. In fact, it's just our present active infinitive, parare, followed by personal endings. Active if obviously we want our active imperfect subjunctive, or passive if we want the passive subjunctive. Now, a fear that something may happen in the future, and it is always talking about a fear for the future, is expressed by nay. Now, we've met nay before as the negative of a purpose clause or an indirect command, but here it's going to express a positive fear, a fear that something will happen. You know, the Romans were afraid that the sky would fall on their head, and it's followed, nay, by the imperfect subjunctive. So we've got an example here, rex timuit ne exercitus in bello vincerator. So we've got underlined there our part of timeo, timuit, the perfect, ne, and then vincerator, which is our imperfect subjunctive and passive here, ter, third person singular. So the king was afraid that his army would be defeated in the war. So the nice and straightforward way of translating ne after a verb of fearing, introducing a verb of fearing clause, is just simply that. The king was afraid that his army would, in the future, be defeated in the war. Nice and straightforward. Now, a negative verb of fearing also uses nay, but is also followed by known. Now, this really kind of marks out a negative verb of fearing clause, because it's the only time at GCSE that nay and known are found together in one construction. And so we get femina timebat ne vir domum non veneret. So the woman was afraid that her husband would not come home. So it's still a fear for the future, but it's a fear that something won't happen. Afraid that her husband would not come home. So verbs of fearing, nice and straightforward, recognised by we've got part of timeo, followed by nay, and then followed by the imperfect subjunctive, or nay, known if it's a negative verb of fearing.